That is in the aeration tank, where all of the bugs and so on are there, treat up all of the organic matter, etc. And then it goes to a secondary clarifier, where the water gets cleaner before it is discharged to waterways. But then all of the solids that are collected is that we cannot just take that solid and just put it down in the waterway. We have to manage it. And that's where solids processing comes in. And solids processing, it's typically done by going through a process called anaerobic digestion. And during that process of anaerobic digestion, that is where the magic happens. Because you have those bacteria that are there breaking down the organic matter. That's where you have stabilization. That's where all of the degradable material that might contribute to odor, the bacteria helps to degrade it. And also, because that at that time it is called sewage sludge, it contains pathogens. A lot of the pathogens are destroyed during that process. And after that, anaerobic digestion, it will go to some form of thickening. That is where the goal is to reduce the amount of water so that you have less volume to manage. Typically, that is done through centrifuging, but they could also use something called gravity belt thickening, etc. And then that material it now could be used. It is called biosolids. Once it goes through the anaerobic digestion process and it meets the requirements established by the regulations, it is called biosolids. And biosolids, it could be safely applied as a fertilizer or soil amendment. But you could also have the biosolids just directly from the digesters go out and beneficially used instead of being taken. And that is called liquid biosolids. Now let's take a look at some of the benefits that we get from biosolids through land application. First of all, biosolids is high in organic matter. It being high in organic matter, especially like for those of you all who do gardening at springtime, you know how that your plants will do well if your soil has no organic matter. You might go to the store and you might buy compost to enrich that soil, but biosolids has all of those properties and can help to improve the soil. Secondly, it has a lot of nutrients, and therefore it could be used as a substitute for chemical fertilizer. And on a broader scale, it contributes to sequestering carbon in the soil. That is holding carbon in the soil so that it minimizes the amount of greenhouse gases that is emitted, and therefore helps in the reduction of global warming. And as far as how we can use it, there are a few ways that we can use it. First, we can use it in agriculture. Most of the biosolids that are beneficially used are used in agriculture as a substitute for chemical fertilizer. Especially like in Illinois, in the nearby counties of Cook County, a lot of the biosolids from Chicago is used on farmland in those counties. But we do not just dump biosolids on farmland. We have to manage it well. And some of the things that we have to do is that first, we have to ensure that we comply with the regulations, that we have federal regulations, and we also have state regulations. And we also have permits for doing land application. And so what we have to comply with is that we have to follow specific loading rates. That's the amount of biosolids that is needed to minimize the excess nutrients accumulating in the soil. Also, we have to establish what they call buffers, that is the distance from a road, distance from a well, distance from a residence. So we have to take care of all of that. And then also, there is a lot of monitoring and reporting that we need to do. Because we have to analyze these samples and we have to report to Illinois Environmental Protection Agency and also to the US EPA. Then we also have to take care of the surroundings, the people. We have to be aware of the neighbors. We have to inform the general public. We have to also inform the officials in the counties that the biosolids are applied. Then another form of land application is where we use biosolids to reclaim land. That is called land reclamation. Since biosolids have been applied for over 50 years in this country, reclamation of mined land has been a significant use of biosolids. For example, when you look at this, when I saw this picture, I thought it was, people are on the moon. But that's not moon soil. That's actually mined land. And this is some land that the MWRD owns in Fulton County, Illinois. That was the state of the land when MWRD took ownership of that land in the early 1970s. But then, by using biosolids, a total transformation, because that the biosolids was helped to improve tea soil, as you can see here. As you can see here, is that it helped to make this land productive agricultural land unto this day. There are also a lot of biosolids throughout the US is used in urban areas. And that is where it is used on golf courses. It's also used on like recreational fields. And for example, this picture here is from the construction of a golf course in the Chicago area. And talking about urban use, some of you all that might have gone to your landscape store or the hardware store to get some organic material to improve your garden, you might have run into biosolids. For example, Milwaukee has been bagging dry biosolids, and next year is going to be 100 years since Milwaukee has been bagging this material called milorganite. Also, in Washington, D.C., all of the biosolids that is generated in the Washington, D.C. area is land applied, and it is marketed through a brand that is called Bloom. They have bag material, they also sell in bulk. If you go to Texas bag gem material, and you can see it in the store as Dilo Dirt. You go to Tacoma, Washington, they have Taggo. They've been doing that now for over 40 years. But when we use biosolids in the urban area, we also have to manage how we do that. We have to be able to educate the public about biosolids. We have to do outreach. We have to engage with those customers. And then we also have to provide materials such as brochures and pamphlets and so on to let people know about the benefits of using biosolids. So let's look at production of biosolids, how biosolids are used. In the US, almost over 50% of the biosolids are used through land application. As you can see, it's going to be either through agriculture or on urban land, right? But a lot of it is actually landfill also, and some of it is incinerated. Now, as far as the federal regulations is concerned, That's three ways in which you can manage biosolids. You could either beneficially use it on land, you can do incineration, or you can put it in landfill. If you had to make a choice, which one would you use? Would you prefer? It's going to be land application because you are reusing the material as a resource once it is managed well according to key regulations. In Illinois, if you take a closer look, we see that 75% of the biosolids are used through land application. We have most of it in agriculture, and that group that is identified as Class A exceptional quality, that is used on urban land. So that's approximately 75% that is used in land application, together with reclamation. And then let's take a look closer. Let's look at in the Chicago area. This data is from 2022. We see that all of the biosolids generated by Metropolitan Water Reclamation District are beneficially used for the land application. Most of it directly to agriculture. Some of it is processed into a product that is called pellets, and that is used in agriculture throughout the country. And then some of it is also used on urban land. When we generate biosolids, we can apply to farmland as a cake, or we can apply to two bags, cake and bags. So you might think that, oh, managing biosolids is a piece of cake or it's a walk in the park, but it's not. There are challenges. First, I'm going to focus on two different challenges. First of all, I'm going to look at public relations challenges, that is public perception. The first thing is all biosolids have odors, no matter what you do. So we have to manage it well and also to be able to help educate the public that it is just an odor, it is not something that is dangerous to your health. A second thing that we have to manage is like people just saying, yeah, I don't want this in my backyard. Right? So that's where education comes in. Another thing that we have to manage, there are people who are saying that, if the biosolids is applied close to my area, I might get sick. We have to educate people about the benefits and also about the constituents in the biosolids. Thirdly, the media. That's one big thing that we have to manage, because the media likes to exaggerate some of the issues that are associated with land application. So that is a whole another area that biosolids professionals have to manage. Next, I'm going to just go through a few of the next major challenges, regulatory challenge. Now, in 1972, we had the Clean Water Act, and in the Clean Water Act, it stipulated that the nation need to establish limits and management practices for any pollutants in biosolids. And not just that, but they said that you need to check upon this every 2 years. So Illinois EPA had that requirement. So since then, in 1986, they developed a preliminary guidance. That was why they were still doing a lot of the research and so on. Then next, in 1993, they established the federal rule that governs land application on biosolids. It's called Part 503 rule. And there is where they established limits for 10 metals. It started with 10 metals, but it eventually reduced down to 7. And they also established standards for pathogens. Class B for the biosolids that is not highly treated, and Class A for the material that is highly treated so that it has almost no pathogens. Then they also went through a period that they looked at other chemicals like dioxin in 2001, and then in 2013 they also did a survey of 145 different chemicals, and it included pharmaceuticals, hormones, and the big word PFAS. Who have not heard about PFAS? You have not heard about PFAS?
I thought you said
Okay.
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 I had a great lecture yesterday.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so everyone should know harm of PFAS, because they said that it is everywhere, and they call it forever chemicals. But based upon what they say about it, I say that it is forever and it is everywhere, forever everywhere, because it is difficult to break down. It is in our homes, and a lot of it comes from our homes through the products that we use. It comes to firefighting foams, etc. Then let's just look and see, how does PFAS relate to biosolids? First of all, let's look at how the PFAS cycle. It comes from the industries, it comes from the homes, it comes from our homes, and then it goes to the wastewater treatment plant. And even from our landfills, we have bleachate coming from the landfills, and some landfills discharge into wastewater treatment plant. Through the wastewater treatment plant, it tends to accumulate in the biosolids. So when you land apply biosolids, there is the potential for it to leach from the soil and contaminate groundwater. So that is one of the major potential issues. And so as far as how that PFAS is handled, so that in 2021, EPA established what they call a roadmap, and in that roadmap they specifically included biosolids and said that they would need to do a risk assessment to evaluate the potential impact of two of the chemicals, one that is called P4 and the next one PFOS, look at their levels in biosolids and how it might impact the environment. Then last year they developed a draft risk assessment, and they opened it up for public comments. So the comments are due in August, and it is creating a major issue for biosolids management in the country because of how the risk assessment was conducted and how it was communicated. Because it focused on a non-typical farm family. And then through the issues of PFAS, we have some states that have started to take action to address PFAS. For example, states like Michigan and Maryland, they established what they call interim standards for managing PFAS in biosolids. And then we have states that have gone to the extreme. For example, we have the state of Maine. In 2022, they completely banned land application of biosolids throughout the state, and it has created a whole big issue because the only other option they had was landfill, and their landfills did not have any capacity. So they started to try to send it to Canada, and Canada said, no, we don't want to take your biosolids. So it's creating a lot of issues in the state of Maine. So that was just really a snapshot of biosolids and some of the challenges. So if there is like a couple of things that I want you to take away from this, is to know that biosolids is a valuable resource that we get through wastewater treatment. Secondly, we will always have regulatory scrutiny and challenges with PR. Thirdly, it is science and public opinion around PFAS that might shape the future of land application of biosolids. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fox. So I'm the moderator, but we got stuck in traffic, so we may self-moderated session, and we did lose one of our speakers. So thank you, but does anyone have, well, okay, we have a question.
Actually, I missed your first 5 minutes of presentation, but the topic is really relevant to what I'm doing. I have a question about biosolids. What is your opinion on biosolids going to landfills? Because they do contain PFAS.
Okay, so as far as biosolids going to landfill, a couple of issues with respect to PFAS is that first is that biosolids is something that we produce every day. We're going to continue to produce biosolids as long as we live. And someone talked about one potential solution, which I hate to use that word, but I think it was like a very good way to look at it. They talked about someone coming up with something called a butt plug. Right? So
Biosolids will always be with us.
biosolids will always be with us, right? And then I know that we have a saying in the Caribbean where I am from, is that they said that the rotted tooth in your mouth, you are the one who has to suck it. So we have to realize that we have to deal with it. And as far as going to a landfill, we will run out of landfill space. Secondly, with respect to PFAS, is that they put the biosolids in the landfill, and as I have shown on the slide here, it is part of the PFAS cycle. So it's going to come from the homes, and it's going to go out, go to the landfill, go to the water, the leachate from the landfill is going to come back into the system, and we're going to continue the cycle. So we could either use the biosolids beneficially, where the biosolids help with where the soil helps to help with the attenuation of the PFAS in the system, or we could put it in landfill and keep it going over and over and over. We do not want that. Yes.
A couple of the talks at the conference are about using algae to break down waste. Do you have any thoughts or opinions on algae versus bacteria? On algae versus bacteria for breaking down waste. So I am more familiar with bacteria as far as breaking down waste because of the wide range of species that are known to exist in the wastewater treatment stream and helps with at least breaking down organic matter. But as far as for breaking down waste, and I would look at it from the respect of phytoremediation, it's a lot of bacteria that are involved in that process. Algae, I know that algae has the potential to accumulate some of the constituents from, like, let's say, wastewater and so on, such as nitrogen and phosphorus, and helping to manage it. But I don't think that it is as effective as bacteria, the range of bacteria, for breaking down pollutants.
I'm going to, if it's okay,
Yeah,
we're going to move forward because I'm trying to keep us a little bit on time. We do have a networking break at 10 to 10:15, so we may go a little into that because we both got a late start and that was a very interesting presentation. So Arvin Kari, who's been at Boise at the university for
and sorry that we were stuck in traffic and late, but apparently somehow we made it because everybody else was late too. So this topic, recycle and reuse of food industry byproducts, is something outside what I usually do, but we were reached out by a client who was stuck with this problem, and this is a common problem with food industry byproducts, and food industry struggles with this issue. So the goal of this project, what we proposed to them, was basically solve two problems at once, kill two birds with one stone. So that was the goal. I'll give you some literature review of what people have done for similar problems. I cannot reveal who the client is. We have an NDA signed. They don't want to, the PR is an issue for them as well. So I will not tell you what the type of contaminant or what the type of waste is, but generally describe it. I'll show what we did to try to solve the problem to some extent, and I'll show you the results and conclusions. So the sponsor information unknown, not to be discussed. We simply call it food industry byproducts, or FIB. So that's what, when I say FIB, that's what I'm referring to. Only one of the sites of our client creates more than 100,000 tons per year. And there are so many sites that this client has in Idaho. I'm from Boise, Idaho, across the country, not Iowa, not Ohio. So, and there's plenty of these sites, so hundreds of millions of this type of waste generated every year. The main material in the waste is calcium, precipitated calcium carbonate, or PCC. The soil, organics, heavy metals, other chemicals, pesticides, fertilizers, nitrates, phosphates, and so on as well. And the current practice is just a stockpile. There are almost like 4 or 5 city blocks of the waste surrounding that in the middle of a city or a town. The odor is a problem, the dust is an issue, the waste is an issue, leachate of heavy metals, out of this is an issue. So it's a big problem for them, and there's another issue with this, is this waste has high pH, so agricultural farms would not accept them because farmland, especially west of the country, is alkaline. It's not acidic soil like forested area. Hence, they can't even take it. So that's another issue. So farmlands can't take this type of waste either. And there was some prior trial by a geotechnical company at a small scale, but some relatively successful. So there's what these type of industries do, and it's a common practice for most food industry, is basically they mine limestone, which is calcium carbonate. In a way, they consume a lot of energy and heat, break it down to quicklime, and generate a lot of CO2 anyways. Then quicklime mixed with water turns into hydrated lime. And when they add hydrated lime to the food, to whatever agricultural product they have, it would purify the product, and you can extract what you need for food industry, but then you precipitate the calcium carbonate again. So it's a cycle in a way. If somebody could take the calcium carbonate back, turn it into lime for them, that would be wonderful. But there's a research institute working on it for years and years. And there's a lot of challenges with the texture of this waste that's powdery, silt-sized type of grains it has. Now, this is, when we tested this waste, this is what you see there. And some of the properties, pH is there, and some of the material, cation exchange capacity, and so on. There's around 20% excess time there, 3 to 5% organics in there, which cause trouble when it comes to some applications for reuse. But you could see all of them. The stuff in the red box are what they have to monitor every year. An EPA would be on top of that, and that's a trouble for them, and they leach it, and everything else is an issue. So there are contaminants and toxic material in there as well. So what we looked at is the structural applications for reuse of this, remediation actually for reuse, agricultural application after some tweaking, and some other thoughts and ideas we have that we're still working with this client. This one is basically to improve, for ground improvement, to solve the problem of expansive clays. In Idaho, there's expansive clay near Boise, Idaho, Marsing, Idaho, and Idaho Transportation Department has been dealing with this issue for years and years, and obviously they can use lime treatment, or they have been trying other solutions as well, and we thought, okay, if we could use the waste to solve the expansive clay issue, we can kill two birds with one stone. And this is where Marsing is, where the expansive clay is that we tested this material on. And the issue we have to be careful is high organic content, potential leachate, and high pH that it has, and the trace amount of soil that may not be suitable for the purpose. This is just one image of one corner of the site that's as big as UIC campus. That's the waste in the middle of the city, and you can't even drive on a highway a few miles away because of the odors. And the issues are alkalinity, impurities, and so on, I mentioned, but there's cementitious properties due to the excess lime that exists, and pozzolanic sort of activities would help with that as well. There's differences between this and ash, fly ash and coal ash, but there are similarities as well with them. As I mentioned, there's pozzolanic reactions that could happen that would be helpful in a way for what we're trying to do. Some work has been done on similar waste for a different problem by Langredy et al. Some work has been done by Sharma in 2012, Sharma et al. On fly ash for similar problem, or on the same type of waste for a different problem. So this is pretty much all we found that resembled what we were trying to do. Not the exact same waste on the exact same problem, but a mix of basically two. So, and obviously after we thought that we would mix this with expansive clays and look at the properties afterwards. The properties of interest, obviously acceptable swelling is what we wish for, acceptable bearing capacity for traffic is what we wish for, and immobilizing leachate. We thought the clay would immobilize leachate. In a way, the clay would help the waste, so the leachate would stop, and the waste would help the clay, so it would not expand anymore. So that, increase the bearing capacity. And there's no standard at the moment, unlike fly ash, so hence we had to come up with our own set of tests to try this. And we were looking at optimizing the use, so the more we can get rid of this waste, the better for the client, and hopefully we can kill two birds with one stone. And as you can see here, we did run some tests and test the FIP, test the clay. We mixed them at different contents from 0, meaning pure clay, 0% FIP to 100% FIP, meaning pure FIP, and in between 15, 30, 45, and 60%. And when we created the blends, we have to be careful with how to mix them, how to add moisture, and so on and so forth. We have to come up with we ran compaction tests to figure out what the best procedure is to compact this, and then we ran a setup test from Proctor and Andromeda and UCS and added Reglevitz and shear strength tests and so on and so forth. Expansion, all the direct shear test, permeability test, all of those things were performed, and then we picked the best blends that would work. We looked at the SEM imaging to figure out what happened in there. We looked at the leachate at the end to figure out whether this makes us safe or not. And it sort of proved our hypothesis that it was true. So these are some of the results in terms of compactability. As you could see, the mix is relatively better than the clay, and it's better than the FIP. So we're solving two problems at once. And This is the compactability results, and you can see on the vertical axis the maximum drag density, and on the horizontal axis increasing fill percentage. You could see that at all mixes you get a better compaction than clay or the fill. And here you see the stress strain behavior, and 15% fill is the best, as you can see. Compared to others, and in the interest of time, I don't get too much into the details of the technical details of that, but you could see that this one, the 30%, this was an outlier. We think something went wrong, or there's something specific. This is 30%. We tried it twice, but let's consider that as an outlier for now, because you somehow see that from 15% things start getting worse. Anyways, when you increase that, which is typical of what the AASHTO and UCS suggest as well. This is the unconfined compressive strength. You could see that, again, 15% is the best mixture in terms of capacity. And this is interesting. This is hydraulic conductivity of the mixture. Apparently, from clay all the way to 40–50% fill, the clay controls the flow regime, and hydraulic conductivity stays in the range of clay. But you go to 60 and above, everything behaves like fill, so it becomes very, very permeable. So in terms of leach it to 50%, you should be relatively safe. And this is soil potential. So when we test the vertical axis is soil percentage, you put a typical traffic load on this, and then monitor the soil strain, and the vertical axis is the percentage of the fill that's added to the mix. As you could see from the clay, that's very expensive, 18%. As you add the fill, drastically the soil percentage drops. The best practice is 2%, which requires too much fill, which means then your bearing capacity might become an issue, so that needs to be considered. But even at the moment, they're happy with 4%. Actually, this is, this is below 1%. So with 2%, they're happy. With 4%, they can live with. So this is relatively desirable. And here is a table that shows all the properties of the fill, pure fill. And this is pure clay, 15%, 30%, 45%, and 60%. And you could see that this mix becomes non-plastic. So that's pretty helpful in that regard. And this table also shows the leachate. One thing that's interesting, and you could notice, is this is the heavy metal that you could see, and the leachate results. And on the vertical, you see the influence of water that was going into those hydraulic conductivity tests. So this is the influence. Even the water has some of those metals that you could see there. But then you see the Marcin clay, and so this is the influent water. This is what leaches out of the Marcin clay. This is what leaches out of 15%, 45%, and 100% fill. If you compare them, fit is bad. The clay itself has all its own issues, but the mix is in some cases is much better than both. So in a way, two birds killed with one stone. So that's, and if you put all those properties on a chart, you could see what percentage of the fill helps what and hurts what property. And based on this big picture, you could make a more educated decision on what percentage you could use if you're just caring about expensive clay, if there's traffic, if you're trying to add this to a barrier, or if you, whatever the purpose is, you could sort of pick the percentage, the blend percentage that you would like. And overall, there's hope that this mix is because of this non-plastic behavior, it would be helpful. The dry density could be increases, hydraulic conductivity can be kept low, and so on and so forth. So overall, I think this is the first step with this, and we have other ideas that we're working on them, and hopefully we can help them gradually get rid of this waste. It's not like they will pay people to get rid of them, If you can find a use, why not? Okay, that's pretty much it, and hopefully, if there's any question, I will attempt to answer.
I know, but we have a few minutes for questions, we got started late. Are there questions?
Yes.
This is to alkylate it to make concrete with.
The only problem that would prevent you from making concrete with might be the organic content, 3 to 5%. Other than that, it's the similarities. Now, the practice used to be they used to mix it actually with sand, with soil, and just stockpile it. On purpose, they would mix them so they could drive on them and stockpile them and so on. Now they just go mix them, so it's relatively pure FIP, as I call them. And the only issue that to be studied that could cause trouble is the organic content. Other than that, theoretically, you might, as a matter of fact, we've been thinking of giving it a shot somehow. Yes.
Why is your client not able to take this 100,000 to a landfill?
This is 100,000 per year that the one site creates.
Is the cost then?
100,000 tons, yes. It's just the capacity. I mean,
It's a lot.
and Idaho has only 1.5 million population, the number of landfills today, and it's expensive to ship them. They wish that somebody would take them even, they would pay people to take them and use them, but below the landfill price. Just the cost. And landfill capacity is available. And the other thing is they're sort of cognizant of the footprint of that because they already paid so much to create the dime and then the, so just economics.
Are you able to say where this client is regionally?
All over the country, you can find them, especially out west.
Okay.
Where agriculture is prominent, California, Idaho, Oregon, Texas.
And a silly question, but what came first, Marsing the soil or Marsing the city of Idaho?
Oh, that I have no answer for.
Okay.
I don't know.
I didn't know if the city's named after the soil or the soil's named after the city.
I don't know. I always thought that was city was there, so this church was called Marsing, and then the clay was called Marsing clay. It was like Boston blue clay. So, but I could be wrong.
I'll Google it.
But that's yeah. ChatGPT.
Is there enough of a market for this in just one state to make it appropriate to utilize as a continuing way of eliminating the need for stockpiling this?
So basically find a customer somewhere else so
Yeah.
one can use it when, I mean, this is the whole purpose of what we did to find
Yeah.
customers like ITD. But at the moment, the only customers would be farmland with lower pH conditions, which is nothing you can find in Idaho or California because most soil is too alkaline for this. Because this would increase the pH of the soil beyond what's already a problem for them. But then the cost of shipping would become an issue for them.
All right, well, I think that wraps up the session. I want to say quickly that we did have a speaker, Ray Padilla, here, who's on. He's running late, got called before, but he will be here in the next session around 10:30, so he will be speaking. So we're looking for that. And Dr. Fox, could you please come up? Because we have some awards we'd like to give you for participating in the conference. It's such important work. And no one pictures.
National Recycling Coalition. We've been kind enough to invite the NRC and Ben's not here, but to be a part of this, and we thought it would be beneficial. We've got a few people from the NRC board that live in the Chicago area. Mara Keene was here earlier or yesterday, I believe, so some of you may have seen or met her, Mara, and her discussion. For those that don't know about the NRC, the National Recycling Coalition, it was formed in 1978. It's an association of state recycling organizations, but our mission is to promote and enhance recycling throughout the United States and advocate for the recycling industry across the country. So Kind of stay pure to the word recycling. As a matter of fact, we have quite a few policies on our over the years that we've developed, and defining the word recycling is one of the things that we did early on. We're one of the only organizations, I think, I don't even know if the EPA really defines recycling, but the National Recycling Coalition has. So if you're looking for a good definition of it, please look to the NRC. You're always welcome to join. We have a website, nrcrecycles.org. So please consider that. All right, enough of me and what I do in my free time. I want to introduce Dr. Kashi Venapala. Got sort of that right. And he's going to speak on EPR, extended producer responsibility. I'm used to it, saying EPR a lot because we're working on it here in Illinois as well. There's a bill that passed that we're doing a needs assessment right now with the state of Illinois EPA. So, without further ado, thank you.
Thank you for the nice introduction. Good morning to you all. So I am Kaushik Bandyopadhyay. I am from Calcutta, India. I am a full professor at Jadavpur University. That's a state-funded university. So I have some. I have under me. There are 6 students who graduated and also got their PhDs, and now presently there are 5 more. So mainly what I will be doing is I will be presenting their work only. So that's it. So let me go to the presentation. So first of all, I want to acknowledge my student who has already graduated, is now working in a Central Pollution Control Board, that is Debolina, and also her colleagues are there, that is Mr. Sandeep Rai and also Mr. Vinal Kalishwas. So, you know that this present day, the environmental issues like the climate change, deforestation, air and water pollution, soil erosion, contamination and depletion of natural resources, which we are all familiar with, are the main causes, significant causes for challenges worldwide. So the major environmental challenges which hinder sustainable social and economic growth, and the rising resource demand and also demand driven by population growth, particularly in our countries, actually, and also it hinders it actually is improving life standards. So current widely used like this linear economy approach, like the take, make, use, dispose model, causes over extraction, excess water waste generation, as well as it ignores reusable value. So what is the environmental and economic impact? So it leads resources, disrupts supply chains, worsens environmental degradation. So it is better, so we should try now, it's high time that we shifted toward sustainable models like circular economy, which emerges as a promising one. So if we quote Kate Craig, which says that waste is a design flaw, the ability to create circularity of all materials eliminates waste and builds a sustainable world. So let us see that what was the present linear economy model. That means that raw materials is collected from their production is done, and then it goes to the consumers for consumption, and then the waste is produced, and it goes to this landfill or whatever that's done. But what is the circular economy proposes is that there should be production, distribution, then distribute from production, from the raw material it will go to the production, and then from there it should go to the distribution, and then it will go to the consumer consumption, and after that consumer, it reaches the consumer, it should not be, the rest should not be left as a waste. It should be, yes, the part that cannot be actually recycled or this thing, that can be left as a waste, and the collected and recycled portion, again it should be used as a raw material for further production in the cycle. So circular economy and extended producer responsibility. It includes like circular economy, it was originated in the 1970s, and the main focus was reduce input by reusing, recycling, maintaining products. And its goals were preserve the resources, boost the efficiency. The waste management shift, it was from disposal to sustainable systems and based on polluter pays principle. And the extended producer responsibility, it includes that the operational tool of PPP model, it extends producers accountability beyond product use. So, and also it supports the economic goals and makes producers responsible for whatever the entire product life cycle includes. So they will be solely responsible. Now the global adoption of this EPR includes that it was like initiated in Germany in the 1990s, and now it has become global. So it covers products like packaging, waste, electrical and electronic equipment, batteries, paint bottles, oils, filters, the electric vehicles, tires, glass, etc. And it is now adopted in countries including the UK, Japan, USA, China, India, and others. So the concept of EPR earlier was actually the producer's responsibility was like from raw material to production process and then final product, distribution and consumption. So up to that level it was the producer's responsibility. But now it has been extended from consumption to further waste and then the recycling or reuse of this waste and the final disposal. So this is also now included under producer's responsibility. So the coverage of EPR system, it includes like there are two, if we call it upstream and downstream. So the upstream side, it includes the raw material extraction and processing, manufacturing, then distribution, retail sale, and then again up to this level it is the upstream, and the downstream side then it is the consumption and discard of this waste material, collection of this waste material, reuse or recycling, processing, and again goes to the raw material. So implementation of this EPR system, there are two main approaches. One is the individual producer responsibility and another is the collective producer responsibility. And it increases the producer's financial responsibility for both production as well as disposal stages. So the common waste streams under EPR includes WEEE, ULABs, ELPs, used tires, used oils, packaging waste. So here in this diagram, it shows clearly that after this manufacturer, it goes to the producer and then to the brand owner, then consumer, waste generation, waste collection, then from there reuse and recycling, and again to the manufacturer. So concept of EPR in India, let me now discuss. It was introduced in the year 2011, and then EPR mandate through this plastic waste management rule 2016, and then it was implemented in 2018. Then in 2020, the uniform framework for EPR was implemented, and in July 2022, EPR for tire waste management was also included. Then in August 2022, the battery waste management rules were implemented, and then further in November 2022, the e-waste management rule was implemented. So the concept of EPR in India has evolved as a response to the growing challenges of waste management and environmental degradation. Plastic waste management rule in 2016, it marked a pivotal moment in India's waste management policy landscape. And over the time, the Ministry of Environment and Forest has expanded the scope of EPR to include other waste streams such as electronic waste, and different types of hazardous wastes like battery use, tire waste, battery waste, used oil, etc. Now, the implementation of EPR through central portal by CPCB, that's Central Pollution Control Board. So generally first, the EPR certificate process under the CPCB portal, it is uploaded. So first is the waste processing. So registered recycler or refurbisher, they processes the waste. Then it goes to the certificate generation or the EPR certification generation for CPCB portal, and from there it comes to the certificate purchase. So the producers, they have to purchase these certificates from the portal, and then they have to fulfill and report for the whatever they have performed, they have seen, they have done. So certificates are uploaded accordingly on the CPCB portal quarterly, and return is also submitted. So if finally there is no compliance, so then the actions are also going to be taken from the environmental compensation are also imposed. So EPR annual compliance for plastic waste, this extended producer responsibility it starts with the stakeholders like the producers, importers and brand owners, and then the responsibility goes to the registration at CPCB portal, they have to register, and then this it goes to the waste category, that which kind of waste they are generating, like rigid plastic packaging, flexible waste packaging, multi-layered plastic packaging, plastic sheets, etc., etc. And then their responsibility comes to fulfillment of these all these EPR liabilities, and then filing of the returns, and finally calculation of next year's EPR targets. So the plastic, this pollution, it's also that that definitely needs solution, because it has been observed, it is known that plastic waste pollution actually it generally 400 million plus tons per year of plastic are produced, and the majorities are of this single-use type, which is recycled. 11 million tons out of that enters the oceans annually. The microplastics in food, water are also found in human bodies, and these are harmful to the marine life, the ecosystems and health. So the solutions are like banning the single-use plastics, boosting the recycle, promote eco-friendly alternatives, and enforce the EPR policies. So EPR for plastic waste, it is like there are different categories under which these are made. Like category 1, it is sturdy plastic containers, bottles, jars, and boxes. Then category 2, it includes single or multi-layer flexible plastic sheets, covers, carry bags, sachets, pouches. And under category 3, it is multi-layered plastic packaging, at least one layer of plastic and at least one layer of non-plastic material. And last but not the least is the category 4, which includes plastic sheet or like used for packaging, carry bags made of compostable plastics, etc. So extended producer certificate generation, how it is done in this under CPCB. So plastic waste, here we are quoting plastic waste as an example. So EPR targets for producers, importers, and brand owners are set on a yearly basis, increasing incrementally each year until reaching 100% of the total eligible quantity for the subsequent year. So it says that these producers, that is P, for producers, the Q, the total eligible quantity in metric tons, is equal to the total average weight of the plastic packaging material introduced in the market in the last 2 financial years, that is AP plus B. B is the average quantity of pre-consumer plastic packaging waste in the last 2 financial years, minus C. C is the annual quantity supplied to the brand owners in the previous financial year. So likewise, for the importers, this equation is applied, that is Q equal to AI plus B minus C, and for brand owners, this Q equals to ABO plus B. That's it. So this way these quantities are evaluated. Now, the EPR for plastic waste processors are responsible for the processing plastic waste and issuing certificates for the processed waste under PWM, that is the Plastic Waste Management Rules 2016, as mentioned earlier. Then these PWDs can issue certificates to producers, importers, brand owners only after facilities undergo audits by the state control pollution boards, that is SPCBs, or the pollution control committees. The producers must meet the minimum targets for plastic packaging waste annually, and also the end-of-life plastics should be disposed of using approved methods such as the road construction or waste-to-energy processes. And entities those use 100% biodegradable plastic packaging, they are actually exempted from the extended producer responsibility. So EPR for e-waste in our increasingly digitized world, we know electronic devices have become almost ubiquitous and driving innovation and connectivity. So however, this proliferation also led to a concerning rise in the EPR e-waste management, producing a significant environmental and health risks if not managed properly. So, we all know that what e-waste means, like it is electrical and electronic equipment, including the solar photovoltaic modules or panels or cells, whole or in part discarded as a waste, and also rejects from manufacturing, refurbishment and repair processes. So e-waste management is essential to prevent environmental pollution and health hazards caused by toxic components in discarded electronic devices. It also enables resource recovery as well as it supports the sustainable development through recycling and circular economy practices. The e-waste management in India, the EPR framework provides for the following types of entities, namely that is the manufacturer. So this is an entity that is being categorized, which manufacture the electronics and electrical equipment, and they are responsible for eco-friendly production. And producer, these are the entities, they actually get these products under their own brand name and are solely responsible for collecting and managing the e-waste generated from their products. The refurbisher, it is a facility or individual that repairs or restores used equipment to extend its life and must also manage the resulting waste. And the recyclers are an authorized agency or entity that dismantles and processes the e-waste to recover useful materials in an environmentally sound manner. So e-waste rules, management and handling rules 2011, it also outlines the responsibility of producers, consumers and dismantlers. And e-waste management rule, it was further upgraded and modified, then amended in 2016 to introduce extended producer responsibility and also target-based e-waste collection. And it was further amended in 2022 to strengthen the EPR regime and to promote circular economy. So this is the EPR, e-waste EPR system through CPCB portal. So first is regular CPCB, and then they are under, as I said, refurbisher, producer, recycler. Then under the SPCB or PC6, and the source of, from recycler, it goes to the source of e-waste and the consumer handling, and again from there. So this is the entire this flow sheet. And here, so the EPR certificate is given for like QEPR, which is eligible quantity for EPR certificate, is equal to the product of the quantity of processed product and a conversion factor CF, which are actually product specific and approved by the steering committee. So metal recovery from end of life e-waste, that is also aspect. where the metals are grouped as precious metals like gold, non-ferrous metals like copper and aluminium, and for ferrous ones like iron, which also includes steel and the galvanized iron. So this is the flow sheet, that is the scrap collection, the scrap mix. From there, comminution, sorting, and the treatment is done. From there, the higher quality scrap are generated, and that is again melted, that is melting, and then it is refined, and finally there is the casting, and then the new scrap is produced, which is production of goods, and the old scrap, that is the end of life products, that is being disposed in a environmentally friendly manner, like the use as resource, waste to energy, or for road construction, like the like waste. So EPR for battery waste, in another case, where the center is the EPR portal. So the first is the registration of these producers, recyclers, information, then EPR target generation, then the certificate generation, finally the annual and quarterly return filing, and then periodic audit, and also imposition of the circular economy. So waste battery, it includes used and end of life battery and its components or spares or parts of consumables which may or may not be hazardous in nature. Pre-consumer off-spec battery and its components or spares or parts which are consumables, and battery whose date of appropriate use has already expired, and battery which has been discarded by the user. So recycle of waste battery, this is the flow sheet. So lead acid batteries, a closed loop recycling success story. So here is used battery. It is battery collection, scrap metals industry, then goes to breaking and separating, then waste clears here, and then sulfuric acid. As sodium sulfate is used in glass, textiles, laundry, detergents, and fertilizers. And another is polypropylene plastic. Plastic waste recycler. Then it's from this breaking and separating, this lead and green and paste is recovered, and from there it goes to the second refining smelter. Then finally it is the second lead alloys. So from there again it is being recycled like new battery distributor, customer, and again this used battery. So EPR implementation through CPCB portal for battery waste. That is first the registered producer. You see, then it goes to to upload the quantity and type of batteries like portable, automotive, industrial, or the electric vehicles placed in the market each year. From there it goes to the battery waste management. That is now it follows the battery waste management rules 2022. And then finally the EPR target is calculated in weights, that is 20% target, multiplied by the quantity of batteries placed on the market in the past years. And here on the right side you see that the registered cycler, he actually uploads the annual return and also calculates the EPR certificates. And then finally again it goes to the EPR target, it is compared whether it complies or not. The recovery target for waste battery, there was a minimum percentage target is fixed for each of these categories. Like for portable, the recovery target in 2024-25 it was 70%, but now it has been modified in 25-26 up to 80%, and the target onwards 26-27 it is 90% should be the recovery target. For automotive, accordingly, it is starts from 55 and now being onwards it is 60%. For industrial, it started from 55, now again target is 60%. And for electric vehicles, it is 70, now it is 90%. So this is the comparative overview of EPR rules for plastic e-waste and batteries. That is for the key features of EPR, that is EPR effective date. You see for plastic waste management it was 2022, for EPR e-waste it was 2023, and for battery waste it was 2022. So if the entities for EPR was like for EPR for plastic waste management it was producer, importer, brand owner, and site recycler or plastic waste processor. But for this thing, e-waste management, it was manufacturer or producer, refurbisher, and site recycler. And for the battery waste management, it was again the same, that is these three: manufacturer, refurbisher, recycler. For registration of producers, it is the producer authorization certificate is provided by the state pollution control boards. But for the e-waste, it is Central Pollution Control Board, and for as the same for this EPR battery waste. For registration of recycler or refurbisher, it is the recycler of plastic waste products are authorized certificate for again the state pollution control board they give, but for this e-waste the CPCB gives, and for battery waste again it is given by the state pollution control boards. For the EPR certificate generation, it is the for plastic waste producers are responsible for processing or plastic waste as well as issuance of certificates. So this processor are solely responsible, but for EPR certificates, for e-waste management actually these are the refurbisher certificates, and this is sometimes deferred, and the 75% of the deferred quantity is added for the next recycling. And for battery waste, it is the this thing, the EPR certificate recycler and refurbishers, they shall be generating the certificates based on the weight of the battery process and also percentage fulfillment of battery, that is the key material. Likewise, the end of life product, and also there should be labeling. So recycled carry bag should be labeled as recycled, which conforms to our Indian standard, this 14534. And for e-waste, there is no such labeling required. But for battery waste also, this time if it is contains mercury, cadmium, or lead, then accordingly they should be labeled like mercury, cadmium, or lead, like, so that it is visible and one can understand. So in environmental compensation also that is one thing that is being proposed, that is CPCB conducts periodic or random audits or registered entities, and in case of non-compliance with EPR obligations or furnishes false information or willfully conceals facts for registration, return or report whatsoever, so then registration may be revoked for up to 3 years. Environmental compensation charges may also be levied. Action are taken for after providing an opportunity, of course, to be heard. So payment of environmental compensation, it does not absolve the producer from EPR responsibilities, and unfulfilled EPR obligations will be carried forward up to next 3 years. The discussion on EPR management framework, it includes that the EPR portal acts as a centralized national registry which is managed by the government, ensuring the data protection and confidentiality. EPR targets are based on the life cycle quantity of recyclable materials like plastic waste. The state governments and pollution control committees oversee the regulated compliance within the EPR framework, and then CPCB handles the stakeholder registration, authorization, and monitoring. The recycler and refurbisher collaboration ensures traceability as well as transparency in waste disposal, and including also the refurbishers in the framework addressing the e-waste challenges, and it supports the sustainability. So incentives for biodegradable plastic use also promote for eco-conscious waste management practices. Now, the challenges for implementation of this EPR. So there are a lot of challenges in here. What it looks like that it is very simple, that implement and then upload this portal, everything. But the challenges are the main bottlenecks for actually implementing it successfully. So integrating India's informal waste sector into the formal EPR system is complex, requiring alignment of informal operations with structured frameworks. Also formalizing loans, offering training, financial aid, and fair compensation are also essential for inclusive integration. Strategic planning is also needed to balance the informal contributions as with the formal compliance for efficient waste management. And implementing EPR regulations demands significant financial investment in infrastructure. That's a major thing that is being lacking because nobody is interested to invest. So small and medium-sized producers may struggle with EPR costs, highlighting the need for support mechanisms. But the financial incentives like tax benefits, subsidies, these are now thought of to boost the producer participation in EPR authorization. So further, EPR is grounded in reverse logistics, focusing on value recovery from end-of-life products. Also, WRL involves collection, inspection, and processing to recapture the marketable material. Efficient WRL also requires coordinated planning to move waste from consumers to recycling units. Clear objectives like consistent methodologies as well as accessible policy documents which ensures effective implementation and informed decision making. So clarity and consistency in EPR framework help prevent confusion as well as to indicate readiness for execution. So in conclusion, we can say that current research gaps, it includes limited focus on implementation challenges, stakeholder roles, also insufficient analysis of the policy tools and network mechanism. And particularly if we look for what is for India the challenges, there is no awareness among producers and consumers, inadequate recycling infrastructure, that is another bottleneck, and also weak enforcement, poor coordination among stakeholders, and limited integration of the informal sector. Now, what are the opportunities that let's see. It promotes eco-friendly technologies and responsible production, boost consumer education and also awareness. It strengthens the regulatory frameworks and supports systems and fosters inclusive collaboration among all the stakeholders. So the way forward is EPR can transform waste into a valuable resource. With unified efforts, India can transition towards a circular economy. Thank you. Thank you.
We've got a moment for any questions. We're going to switch over to the next presentation. Anything? Otherwise, we can take some questions at the end as well.
Yeah, you mentioned weak enforcement. What did you mean by that?
Sorry?
Weak enforcement.
Weak enforcement.
Weak enforcement. Actually, you see this. The big industries that are the very big, they can actually, they know how to go to the portal, and then they are visible, so they cannot hide or they cannot escape. But the small ones, the small industries that are, that they actually, whatever in some small locations, what they are doing, what they are producing, nobody knows actually. And only if they do not upload it, nobody can. It is very difficult because India is a big country and there are a lot of things. It is not that everywhere it is some mandatory to register that industry or whatever. So that's a big problem for them, for these things that to implement to everyone. Yes, now the small in the micro level also steps are taken to actually incorporate all these things so that they will also come under this point of view, so that they cannot escape like that. So that is being, but it will take time. That's it. So
Now, it is a large country. What's the budget that we
budget, because the government is allocating, the government only cannot fund it. The big industries, they should come because for this, whatever the portal that you have to, whatever product you are generating for that is all up to that consumer, the end user, you have to take the sole responsibility. So it includes a lot of things and a lot of funding. So, you understand that nobody is interested to spend that much. They are in their business, but if they have to, in addition to this, they have to spend that much from their pocket. So it hurts So yeah, it has to be done, and government is definitely doing a lot of things, because you can see it started from 2011 and now in 2025 it has gone from plastic waste, now it has moved to e-waste, now battery waste. So generally it is including all the other existing categories.
Okay. We'll have a little time at the end too, hopefully, so thank you very much. Okay, we'll bring up our next thing. So, keeping with the theme of circular economy and, reverse logistics is another piece of the puzzle that is a challenge. We've got Dr. Gary Cooper with Readly. He's CEO and co-founder of the organization, and I'll pass it over to you, Gary.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I love EPR. We're actually also developing some EPR tools, but I'm not here to talk about EPR today. At least they didn't tell me to talk about EPR today. So I'm Gary Cooper. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a local Chicago-based company called Readly. We started here, we were based here, most of our employee base is here, and we just work over in the loop. So, I have two missions. One is to tell you a little about my story, the company, what we're doing, maybe how you can get involved. And second, maybe kind of an immediate call to action. That, the way that we think about resource efficiency at Readly, the way that we pitch it to our customers, almost has nothing to do with sustainability. If we look at if I just take COVID and the supply chain disruptions that came with COVID, now into a post-COVID world where every day I read there's something different on tariffs, we think that owning your stuff, knowing where your stuff is actually a good operational efficiency imperative, and not just something that actually makes our numbers work on decarbonization. But we'll talk about both today. So I like to start off every talk that I do with our mission. It grounds me in what we're doing, and actually the next few slides will break down our mission. So this is our team this was shot about 3 years ago. We've almost doubled the team size here in Chicago. This is literally across the street from the Chicago Fed, where our office is. Our mission is to build a community, so not technology, not trucks, not garbage can, a community with people, physical people and organizations, where every workplace resource finds its best use. So we're working really at the B2B level when it comes to circular economy and reuse. So if I start with the first part of that statement, build a community. So Readly has amassed one of the biggest reuse networks in the United States so far. So we have, I think that number of data, I think we have about 6,200 what we call ecosystem partners. So those are going to be upcyclers, recyclers, refurbishers, repairers, small schools, nonprofits, or small businesses who are looking for things that they can use in their own operation that might be locally bought. We now have over almost 30,000 users. So those would be people who are at our customers, like Rush University or University of Chicago here or Abbey. So they're trying to use things in their organization, and when they can't reuse them anymore, Readly's job is to help them find a new home with somewhere in our ecosystem. The next part of our mission statement is we're every workplace resource. So we are asset agnostic. We actually don't care what you put on our platform. And we have some controls around things you wouldn't, no controlled substances and things like that. But you can see the array of things, and this is just a cartoon of the things that show up on our platform. We do a ton of work with Google. We've seen Google put things like 400 yards of ultra-thin solar panels on our platform. And we've seen Amazon put dog vest warmers. I actually have a dog. I didn't know those things existed. And our job is to find a new home for them, not the landfill. So pulling from some data that we published in 2024, this is what we were able to drive from an outcomes basis from our customers, and you can read faster than I can say them, but we're really proud of these things. And again, a lot of the customers that we're dealing with really have just a recycling program. They actually don't really have reuse happening within their organization, and so we're really excited about some of these numbers. And for me, one of the things I didn't know starting the business is I'm actually really excited about this, my point of work, the last number, right? So we're sending a lot of value back into the communities for free on the order of almost $11 million last year. This is an anecdote that I'm really passionate about. We just finished a really big project with HBO in South Carolina. They had a show there, the Righteous Gemstones, I think it's called, and they had 6 years of stuff in an old Sears that they needed to throw, they were gonna throw away. And we got going and getting that stuff back in the community, and we actually helped refit completely a battered woman's shelter from the stuff from the Righteous Gemstones production. We're presenting this to the EVP at HBO, and he literally starts crying on the call. So for us, it's not just about waste, it's not just about operational efficiency, it's like what can we do in the communities where these assets already reside. My predecessor already talked about the imperative of circular economy. Probably don't have to go through that for people here, but we just don't get to zero without circularity. It just, the math doesn't math. And so we've been trying to briefly to build both the community and the technology for these businesses to be able to operate circularity at some level scale of the NIH and Google and Amazon, so not onesie-twosie, really big programs. We've been alive for about 9 years as a company. In that time, I don't know how many boards I'm on, I don't know how many investments I've looked at. There's more conversation about circularity. But unfortunately, people watching this, the Circularity Gap Report came out about 2 weeks ago, and it showed that the world is now 6.9% circular. It actually was 7.1% circular a couple years ago when the last report was put out, and prior to that, the world was 8.3% circular. So we're actually decrementing somewhere between 10 to 20% each time they do the Circular Gap Report, even though the investments, at least for companies like mine, have gone up. And so I think, to the charge of my predecessor, I think, the components of kind of public investment, business investment, both on policy and actual dollars to infrastructure and tools, have to happen. Otherwise, solutions like Reaply and the people who are my contemporaries will just go to the waste, literally. So I want this number not to be 6.9 2 years from now when I show the same slide again. I kind of mentioned the thing that we keep really high up on our kind of dashboard at Reaply is literally in the, what do you call this, in the desktop screensaver of everyone's laptop, which is we're supposed, in order to keep with the commitments made in Paris, we're supposed to reduce global carbon by 43% by 2030. What month are we in? June of 2025? Haven't done it yet. In the history of man, we've never done it year over year. And so I get worried about what we said we were going to do. In fact, I read a Guardian article last night that said that we might get to 2% increase in a post-industrial before 2030, right? This is what we're trying to prevent from 2050. So we have work to do, and y'all might be pretty aware of a very seminal paper published by Google and the Ellen MacArthur Foundation in 2000, I guess that was in 2017, where they showed that if you moved all sources of travel to electric, if you got rid of cows, if you do all the scope one thing, you still don't get to zero. In fact, there was so-called the GAP report, and they showed that there's about 43% gap if you don't have a scaled circular economy. And so what we've been saying is like we need to do all the things that we're already doing, and we need to enact circular economy. Recycling on its own is not going to get us to where we need to get, both from a waste perspective and from a carbon perspective. I have an unlikely journey to you all today and to this story. So I'm not a sustainability professional. In fact, I did my PhD here, postdoc, and I was on faculty at Northwestern, working on Parkinson's disease, right? So I was trying to think about how do we cure this ridiculous disease called Parkinson's disease, and I happened to be in the largest laboratory at the university, at the medical school downtown, and that means we have lots of stuff. And I would go to lunch with graduate students and other postdocs in my lab, and we were in smaller labs with less funding. And they would always go like, oh, I don't have that thing. I don't have this thing. But if I did, I'd be able to pilot these experiments and maybe justify buying something. But we would have that stuff, and we weren't even using it. So I started a program at Northwestern. It was literally a cart, a little bigger than this one. And every month, I would pile the things that we weren't using in our laboratory on this cart, not this cart, but a cart like it, and I would push it around the floor, the 8th floor at the Lurie building, and I would just redistribute the things that we weren't using anymore. Literally not Einsteinian. Turns out I did it for a year, I left, and people kept emailing me. I was a visiting scholar. Hey, Gary, you know, don't worry, emailing me about Parkinson's. Hey, you know, where's that cart? You know, it was like years later. And so, you know, one day I decided, what if we built some software to replace that cart? There's so many technologies that businesses have to spin, but I kept asking the question, what software do we have, or what tools do we have to help us save and share a little bit more? And so you can see some of the articles that kind of came out after that. And now, with the current administration, we can see how unsure even the funding for scientific research can be for universities. So we have to be a little bit more resourceful. So we started out with laboratories. We started with Northwestern, then Rush, the University of Chicago, then MIT, and a few others, and now we have 40 different university customers. They drive use internally, so labs can share, and they can sell or donate. Not sell to a public institution, but donate to their public institution on our platform, or we help them kind of find a partner for it. That work has gone beyond the laboratory materials, though, which is where I actually started. And now we actually run massive programs around furniture, fixtures, and equipment, FF&E, for the Googles of the world, for GSA, General Services Administration, for Amazon, and others. Why is that? Because if you start to look at the embodied carbon, the carbons embodied in the manufacturing and transport of items, it turns out that FF&E is not our friend. And furniture, super, super big. And so when you talk about the weight of it, the volume of it going into landfill, you talk about its embodied carbon, we kept asking the question, okay, we're helping with chemicals and things, but is there a way for us to kind of shift what we're doing or include what we're doing to more common items that we find in any workplace, like chairs, IT devices, and such? And so we've done so. I was very lucky to, 2.5 years ago, to give a TED Talk in Vancouver on the main stage about the kind of work that we're doing, not just agree with what others are doing, but I was really trying to take it to a city level, and I really kind of painted this picture around circular cities. And it turns out that about 75% of all material that's created ends up in cities. Cities on a landmass account for about 3% of global landmass. So what happens is 3/4 of everything we make, and bring it from the ground, goes into a very small kind of nested areas. And so what I posited was cities are the exact place that we actually want to drive local circular economy. So instead of thinking about global circular economy or global reverse logistics, which gets you backwards on cost, gets you backwards on carbon. We don't ship, chairs from New York to California. What we really need to be doing is building lots of thousands of small local circular economies, and cities are actually the best kind of lab for that. Reaply right now works for 8 different cities, not Chicago, but 8 different cities, and we run their public reuse marketplace. So any business, any nonprofit, or anyone can post things and take things off. Almost like kind of a federated Craigslist with carbon reporting in it. Okay, so this is a really low jack. My whole team would hate this. So these are slides, but it's kind of low jack, kind of what happens at Reaply. So this is not what our platform looks like. This is a cartoon of it. But here are the 3 things to kind of know that what we do at Reaply. We don't think there's a way to build a circular economy if we don't know where things are. I'm gonna say that one more time. We don't think there's any hope to actually having either local or global circular economy if we don't know where the materials are. So we think a core problem is for helping businesses with circularity is knowing where's your stuff? Either in your building, we heard the presentation on EPR, in your region, to your customers, where is the stuff that you bought or made? That's a central question. The second is, okay, now we know where it's at. Let's use and reuse those items as much as we possibly can. And when they can't do it, we help them sell or donate the rest. That's literally the three things that we do at Leafly. And we've been trying to do them at scale for 9 years. That's so the kind of core problems of the circular economy are pretty straightforward, but they're hard. The reason why they're hard is because you have to get all of these players, and maybe more, you'll have a policy state actor here, although sometimes we think about those as sponsors. I should be using my cursor. But it's kind of get all the players, from the producer to the person who first purchased it, to potential end markets that might want it, to people who could be service providers to spruce it up, to repair it, to refurbish it, and they all have to be coordinated in a way in order for this to kind of work seamlessly. Because what we say at Leafly is we have two competitors, the trash and platforms like Amazon. It's so easy to either throw things away or purchase something brand new. And so we have to get this coordination so right, so at least in the business world, so people almost feel like it's at the same speed and convenience and efficiency as the linear motion and linear model. So we skipped over a slide that I don't want to skip over. Let's see, yes. So this is actually what it looks like. So I showed kind of the simplified version, but look, this is what's really happening on our platform. So these are all the same actors. I won't go through every single arrow, but this has taken us 9 years to build the technology, the trust, to embed all the local policies. Every university, every business has their own policies and workflows to be able to build rules engines to get the data from the manufacturers in order to help with carbon reporting. So this is actually how Leafly works. It's a graphic that we're always thinking about. Okay, a few more slides here. This is actually what a platform looks like. And as I said, it does 3 things. Visibility is our inventory management system. That is like bringing visibility to know what you have and where. And then Circulate is the product that helps you circulate it within your organization. So that's the internal reuse program. And then our next life solution is when you can't use those things internally anymore. We help us sell and donate those items at scale. And so ways that you can get involved with us. Well, one, we would just like to know if, where, and I know there's a mixture of people here, but where are you on your circular economy journey, at least in your business? And so we would love to just talk with you about what the work that we're doing with other peer organizations and see how we can be helpful or point you in the right direction if we can't be helpful. And obviously, we'd love for you to connect with me. So I write vigorously and speak vigorously about circular economy because I think someone should. It's not all about EVs, it's actually about trying to find new homes for things that we produce. So with that, I'll leave you with that short presentation. I'm Gary. Nice to meet you all. Take any questions you might have.
We don't have
Yeah, Ray's here, so
Oh, okay.
maybe if you don't mind, helping out on some questions for you.
Yeah, for sure. So, we're going to set up for another presentation here, but any questions for Gary? Go ahead in the back.
Gary, do you all ever work with like universities that move out programs, things like that, where there's a whole mess of small, non-standardized items?
Yeah, we do that at Columbia and Barnard.
Okay.
So we run their move out, move in process. At Columbia, we do it for their graduate school, with their graduate students, and at Barnard, we do it for the undergraduate students.
Does it end up reused within campus typically?
Yeah, mostly in campus. So what typically happens, schools that have a higher international student population, which again might be challenging, but those students will come with almost nothing, just their clothes. And so they're actually looking for the things. And so what we're trying to do is actually decrease the operational costs of like a facilities guy or girl going into a dorm room, taking out the lamp, where the lamp can actually just stay there for the next student. What typically happens with a lot of universities that are sophisticated is they'll either have a short-term storage, they'll do lawn sales, and so we're actually even trying to like bring that to another level of efficiency. But yeah, we do that for a couple of institutions. Yeah, yeah. We'd love to talk more about that. Yeah.
Ever you work with the government entities?
Yes, so we have 3 levels. So we work with 7 cities. 6 of those we work internally. So we help the cities with the stuff that they've already bought and drive costs down. And then all 7, we also have an external platform that anyone in the community can kind of like share items. And then we work with 5 states. And well, until the beginning of the Trump administration, we were working with the NIH. We were running actually a procurement efficiency program with the NIH, saved them a couple $1 million, and unfortunately DOJ canceled our contract, which is strange because it's an efficiency program, but need that be. So I'm working actively trying to get that back, but those are where we work right now. We're pending work with GSA. Yes.
There's many government institutions that got very strict policies.
Totally.
And yes, and for them it's easy to just dump it than to be involved in any exchange, cycles and everything.
Totally.
Like we're sitting on like what, 60 pounds of copper sulfate.
Yes.
It's not as easy to just put it like handle this waste.
Yes.
Then just do something.
Yeah.
To like donate, exchange.
Yeah.
So how are you dealing with those very strict regulations?
So is your question about like kind of the hazardous waste versus the non-hazardous waste?
No, I mean in general, say because we got very strict policies.
Yeah, yeah.
We cannot just like
Totally.
private organization.
Totally.
Like flexible.
Yeah, so I would say, so Georgia Tech, the University of Alabama, Birmingham, SUNY, the SUNY System State University in New York. So those are all public institutions. We have a lot of rules engines where we can just adopt the rules that the university and or the state already has. It actually helps them be compliant with those. And I would say most institutions that are either federally funded or government funded, they operate under something called uniform guidance, where the basically the government's saying, hey, if taxpayers bought that thing and you no longer need that thing, what we want to happen is someone else who has grants to be able to use that thing. The problem is that universities actually can't really operate that at scale, and so we kind of, when you go to your procurement system, there will be a link that says, check and see if you already have it, and that takes you to a previous situation. But outside of that, so the internal reuse makes sense. The external reuse is where we kind of get a little bit more tricky when it comes to state-funded institutions. Typically, they might want it to all go to like one spot, like here in the U of I system, they want it all to go to Springfield, which is kind of, in my mind, crazy. Because then no one knows what's in Springfield. But we can, it would be more complicated to talk about, but we can kind of slice that. We work with 5 or 6 public institutions. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so the product that you reuse, do you repair or are you already set?
Yeah, we have about 700 repairers. So part of what we're trying to do is actually erect the economy. We're just a software business. So what we do is we go vet and partner with, let's say, all the repairers. So we'll look in Chicago, let's say, and every month we'll say, what are the total amount of assets on our platform? Who are the repairers or refurbishers or recyclers that in Chicago that we have on our platform, and is there a nice supply-demand match? If not, my team will go off and start vetting net new suppliers. They could, or ecosystem partners. They could be a repairer, a refurbisher, or a manufacturer. And then we have a whole diligence thing that we do. We get them on the platform, and it's going to help their business because the stuff coming out from the platform is what drives their kind of inventory. So it really is, it's really free for them. We're sending them business. And then what we do is they can put their inventory back onto our platform, and we sell it back to our corporate customers. So for instance, I think 3 weeks ago, Google bought $400,000 of remanufactured furniture from a remanufacturer on our platform that got the furniture from where? Google, right? So that's kind of what we can drive. But we're always updating that. That's why the number is always still when I show that.
So to do a zero waste.
Yeah.
Would it be best also, is that a program for the kindergarten, first grade, start educating? I think that's the key. And educate, I mean, you're doing good, but if we don't educate at that level,
Totally.
how to protect the environment.
I don't disagree with you. I think that where I've spent a lot of my non-paid time has actually been in business schools. Because I actually, going back to what I was saying, I actually think it's imperative that the people who are in supply chain programs, who are getting their MBAs, think about, know about reuse and circular economy. There's only one of me at RIPI right now, but I would love to spend more time in schools. But I go and speak at lots of business schools. In fact, Harvard Business Review, HBR, wrote a case study about RIPI a year ago, and I went to Harvard to teach it. I go around and teach in that case study. So I'm trying to be where the business leaders will be, but I completely agree with you, just it's time.
Yeah, because I have problems with on the south side, well, these streets are holding.
I would love to come talk to
Yeah,
them.
we want to educate the kids.
Yeah, I'll give you my card, I'd love to talk to them. Yeah.
Got a question in the back?
Yes, are you familiar with Project Cure?
Project Cure?
Yes.
I'm not, at least I don't remember right
Okay,
now.
it's a medical equipment recycling
Okay.
organization with 6 large depots in the
Uh-huh.
United States. It's nonprofit, operates only on volunteer use, kind of like some of those food pantry kind of
Yeah,
operations.
I'm aware
But
of one in the
they- millions
Northeast.
of dollars and goes to other countries
Totally.
of equipment.
Yes.
Yeah, so it might be something to
Project
to look
CRE.
at and see their systems.
Yeah.
They're
It's very possible they're an ecosystem partner, and I've lost track of. Basically, I know the people who pay us, if I'm being honest, and all the other people who are on our platform, they come in and out, but I'll definitely look into Project Cure.
I'd like to talk to you about some other options.
Yeah, for sure.
Great, good resource.
Yes.
What percentage of the stuff we buy, and what happens to the stuff that doesn't?
Yeah, so in our hands, my last board meeting, I think the numbers I gave were 77% of the things that are on our platform are internally used one time. And then 98.5% of all things on our platform don't go to landfill ever. So we have about a 1.5 to landfill. We're actually trying to close that gap. Some difficult materials on our platform sometimes, and that's by weight. So pretty efficient. It just turns out that when we digitally know about an item, if I know about this thing, this might be a hard thing to read home. If I know about that months before you're ready to get rid of it, what the system is already doing is making matches before you're actually ready to get done with it. The problem is when you don't want it anymore and then you put it out the street, then the end market for this thing has to be developed at that time, which is really, really hard. So what we're trying to do, as I was saying about the matchmaking, is trying to develop end markets before you need the market. That's why the technology is important.
I had one question.
Yeah.
So, I was reading something about brick and mortar stores are kind of maxed out on their omni-channels now.
Uh-huh.
So everything's kind of leveling
Yep.
off there. Do you fit in a brick and mortar omni-channel environment? Like, I just read Lowe's is going to now be selling products off their website. You got, obviously Walmart's doing it already. Target, I don't know where they're at, but could you fit in that model?
It's like you're on my board. So we have an idea to create a version of the Apple Store meets Home Depot. So we did a big sprint, a discovery sprint on one. We went up and we love Rebuilding Exchange here in Chicago. There's a few others like that. And we essentially went to every thrift store last year that we could in the Chicago area. We have a whole spreadsheet of it. And we kind of walked in, and then we immediately go to the linear version of that, right? So if we're at Rebuilding Exchange, we literally go from there, we went to Home Depot. And one of the things that we noticed was how much more organized Home Depot is. It's a better shopping experience. And when you go into a Rebuilding Exchange, love it, and I'm good friends with Anya, I know she's recently stepped down. It's a thing with every thrift store. You have to essentially be passionate about it. You have to be a finder. It's not really a good shopping experience. And we don't actually think there could be a good shopping experience. We don't think so. So what we imagine is how you go in an Apple store, but you don't really see inventory, or they bring the inventory from some other place. You just have a few samples to try out. We imagine kind of an Apple store meets a Home Depot, where there's inventory somewhere else, and you're using essentially our platform to essentially shop, and then someone brings you samples or you walk through something. So give us another year, and we're working on basically that kind of thing. We would love to do it here in Chicago, actually. To have a big box store around.
We're gonna move on here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Our next speaker was formerly in the other session, but we had a little time constraint. So we've got Frank Avila from Avila Law Group, CEO. So we're welcoming him here. And he's going to be talking about solid waste solutions in Mexico, sustainable solid waste solutions in Mexico. So, thank you, Frank.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to be here. I appreciate it. So, my presentation, I don't have slides. I could have put the text up there, but then you strain your eyes to see it, so you're just going to have to listen to me speak. So, my proposition is water is a fundamental human right. And what the goal is how can we develop sustainable water management in Mexico? And what we do is we analyze the water quality, sewage systems, treatment of wastewater, flood control of Mexico currently, whether there are problems, what are some potential models and solutions in Mexico. And those models are a number of countries where we think that they have the best comprehensive water management, as well as the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Chicago, which is also a potential model. Now, in the Mexican Constitution, Article 4 of the Mexican Constitution explicitly states that every person has the right to access, disposal, and sanitation of water for personal and domestic use in a sufficient, safe, and acceptable and affordable manner. Additionally, Article 27 of the Mexican Constitution establishes that water is a natural resource controlled by the state, which must ensure its sustainable use and equitable distribution. Now, despite these constitutional guarantees, that's the jure law, but de facto, what happened in Mexico is not that, unfortunately. So, despite the constitutional guarantees, Mexico faces challenges in ensuring access to clean water, particularly for low-income and marginalized communities, including rural, indigenous, and low-income populations. So most of the treatment of wastewater is in urban areas, and the best access to clean quality water is in urban areas, and even within those urban areas, it tends to be in wealthier areas. So, in terms of the contamination of the water sources, Mexico's water is heavily polluted due to industrial discharge, agricultural runoff, pesticides and fertilizers, and untreated sewage. Key rivers like the Lerma and Santiago are severely contaminated. Now, access to clean water, while urban areas generally have better access to clean water, rural communities often rely on untreated water sources, leading to health issues such as gastrointestinal diseases. Mexico City has water shortages, and wealthier people and buildings where wealthy people live get water pumped in. So I have a small venture in Mexico with some people in the place that we stay down there, and in the building, which is in a luxury area, they pump the water in. They actually have these big, gasoline tankers full of water, and they pump it into the buildings. Mexico City has come close to being out of water. I believe South Africa actually was out of water briefly at one time, but Mexico City came close. It's built on water. It's built on a mark. In the pre-Columbian Hispanic times, it was like Venice. It was a series of canals, and they had agriculture on the canals, and people would live, etc. So it's built on a lake. It's built on a marsh. Now, the other issue is groundwater depletion. Over-extraction of groundwater for agricultural and urban use has led to declining water tables and saltwater intrusion in coastal areas. So the challenge is weak enforcement of environmental regulations, lack of wastewater treatment facilities, and the high cost of water purification technologies. Now, we identify some of the solutions here: stricter enforcement of water quality standards and penalties for polluters, invest in decentralized water treatment systems for rural areas, and promote sustainable agricultural practices to reduce chemical runoff, and implement rainwater harvesting and groundwater recharge programs. So, in terms of the sewage system, you have huge inadequate coverage. About 60% of wastewater in Mexico is treated. That means 40% of wastewater in Mexico is not treated. And I think that's probably similar to some of the other countries that this group has been involved with, where you have a large percentage of the population that have untreated wastewater. You have an aging infrastructure. In many urban areas, sewages are often outdated, unable to handle the growing population, leading to overflows and contamination. And in the last 40, 50 years, people have moved away from the agricultural areas, the farmer regions, mountainous regions, because of lack. You no longer have that kind of agriculture, as big agriculture has taken over, and then people move to the city. So the city has become very populated. I don't want to state which number it is, but I believe it's one of the most populated cities on the planet. And this creates health risk. Untreated sewage contaminates water bodies, posing public health risks. And again, the challenges here are some of the same challenges, which are high cost of expanding and modernizing sewer infrastructure, prioritizing, because if the government doesn't want to do it or people don't prioritize it, they won't do it. Lack of technical expertise and funding in rural areas, poor maintenance of existing systems. So some of the solutions we identified are increased public and private investment in sewage infrastructure, because businesses have, I believe, an incentive, as the last speaker talked about, for having things more circular, where you are recycling and you are being a good custodian of your natural resources. Develop low-cost, sustainable sewage treatments for rural areas that are small-based. Implement community-based sanitation programs and improve maintenance and monitoring of existing systems. Now, in terms of waste treatment, not just wastewater treatment, but waste treatment in general, Mexico generates over 120,000 tons of solid waste daily. Only about 10% is recycled. So that means open dumping and landfills are very common, leading to soil and water contamination. There's also hazardous waste. Industrial and medical waste is often improperly disposed of. Even though there are protections for people of water being a right granted them in the Constitution, the fact is that's not enforced, and neither are the environmental regulations that are currently on the books. And there's a limited recycling culture, and this goes into what my dad, Commissioner Avila, had talked about, which was, and you have to start with an education program when people are very young, and the schools going up, so you create a culture of awareness and participation in recycling programs. So again, what are the problems? Insufficient waste treatment facilities, lack of enforcement of waste management regulations, and limited funding for recycling and waste energy initiatives. So we provide some solutions that we thought about and talking to others. Expand recycling programs and incentivize participation, invest in waste energy plans and modern landfills, strengthen regulations and enforcement for hazardous waste disposal, promote public awareness campaigns on waste reduction and recycling. Now, in terms of flood control, the current situation has a lot of urban flooding because you had a rapid urbanization, somewhat like Houston when they had the hurricane hit. So rapid urbanization has led into the paving of natural drainage areas, decreased wetlands, increased flood risk in cities like Mexico City, Monterrey, and Veracruz. For instance, climate change and more frequent and intense rainfalls, events exacerbating flooding, particularly in coastal and low-lying areas, the valleys and coastal areas. Inadequate infrastructure. Many cities lack proper drainage systems, and existing ones are often clogged with waste. It needs a heavy investment, but I think a necessary one. The high costs of flood control infrastructure are some of the problems with urban planning, encroachment on natural floodplains, and the lack of integrated flood management strategies. And we do believe that it has to be water management. Everything should be consolidated. Some of the solutions are investing in drainage systems and flood control infrastructure, restore natural floodplains and wetlands to absorb excess water, implement integrated water management resources, IWRM strategies, improve urban planning to reduce impervious surfaces, promote green infrastructure such as permeable surface pavement, retain water in the ground, green roofs, water barrels, solar energy, recycling, and urban planning. And then we also give examples of other countries. Some of those countries are Singapore, And Singapore has one of the most advanced wastewater recycling, public education, and climate resilience programs in the world. And the lesson, I think, for Mexico, or even here anywhere, any country, is invest in advanced treatment technologies and adopt an integrated water management approach. In the Netherlands, they have a circular water economy and nature-based solutions. And they have almost no kind of the landfills that we see here in terms of their recycling of garbage. Some of the key features are resource recovery, nature-based solutions, and flood control. And of course, the Netherlands was famous for flooding. And we have the diet of the little boy. So you have an area that was known for flooding, and it also has canals somewhat like Venice. So a lesson for Mexico or other nations, or even here, explore resource recovery from wastewater and incorporate nature-based solutions. In Denmark, they have a decentralized water treatment and energy and efficiency. The key features are it's a decentralized system. It's energy neutrality and strict regulations. And the lessons from Mexico here or many other countries are to implement these decentralized treatment systems and promote energy recovery. In Germany, they have very advanced technology in river restorations. Rivers 40, 50 years ago in Germany had heavily pollution from agriculture, from industry, from dumping, and now they've turned that around. And so the features are advanced treatment technologies, river restoration, and public awareness. What are the lessons for Mexico here or any other country to adopt advanced treatment technologies and restore polluted rivers? Singapore also was very polluted in their canals, and they completely cleaned it up in a very relatively short period of time. Israel has water recycling and desalination. Key features are high recycling rates, desalination and efficient irrigation, water access and retention in arid places. Innovation and technology are key to Israel's successful water supply, retention, recycling, and management. Some of the lessons that we learned from there are proprietary wastewater recycling and invest in desalination. Now, desalination is usually the most expensive way to purify water. But in arid areas that are on the coast, it may be an option. And it has worked in Israel, which has been very innovative in their water management and recycling. Japan, smart water management and disaster resilience. Some of the key features are smart technologies, including the use of artificial intelligence, disaster resilience, and community involvement. So what we learned from that is implement smarter water management systems and build resilient infrastructure. Lastly, in terms of other nations, there's Switzerland, which has high standards in ecosystem protection. Key features are stringent standards, pharmaceutical removal, which I want to talk about because my father had talked about treating pharmaceutical drugs that enter into our water ecosystem over 20 years ago. And the Sierra Club started talking about it 4 to 6 years after my dad talked about it. But Switzerland is one of the few countries that is treating wastewater for pharmaceutical drugs. Pharmaceutical drugs have turned frogs and other fish, wildlife, that are not naturally in their own ecosystem, where males have become females, where they become transgender or hermaphrodite, biologically, genetically, when it's not natural in their own ecosystem. They've turned this way because what we are putting in our water ecosystem. So I think the lessons here, now the alpine water management, as you know, Switzerland is high mountains. Even if you've never been, you may have seen Heidi or some other movie, or World War II one, The Sound of Music. So you do have the runoff from the water that comes down, and they are very effectively using that. Mexico also has a lot of mountains, and they can develop similar strategies. And we think the lesson from Singapore is adopting stricter water quality standards and investing in technologies to remove emerging contaminants, including removing or treating pharmaceutical drugs. Now lastly, I included the model of the MWRD, formerly known as the Sanitary District, the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago, and the history of it, the engineering marvel of it, as it's called, and reversing the river and the creation of the Sanitary District. And I talk about that in my paper and the problems in the mid-19th century when Chicago faced severe public health crisis due to contaminated water. We used to have a lot of we used to have a big cattle industry, cows, and they just would release the water, and people said you could, like, if you threw a cigarette, the water would turn on fire. So we were facing real bad waterborne diseases in the middle of the last century, or the century before that. And the city drew its drinking water from Lake Michigan, but discharged untreated sewage and industrial waste into the Chicago River, which flowed into the lake. This created a vicious cycle of pollution and disease, including cholera and typhoid outbreaks. The city's rapid population growth and industrialization exacerbated the problem, as the existing infrastructure was inadequate to handle the volume of waste. So it was engineers, and they called it what a civil engineering marvel of the world. They had a radical solution to reverse the flow of the Chicago River to prevent sewage from flowing into Lake Michigan. This would divert wastewater away from the lake and towards the Mississippi River via the Illinois and Des Plaines rivers. To achieve this, the Chicago sanitary and ship canal was constructed and completed in 1900. The canal connected the Chicago River to the Des Plaines River, effectively reversing the river's flow. So what some of the takeaways on that are, and there's some negatives, some people are critical of it, because while it did help solve the immediate public health concerns in Chicago, it had long-term ecological consequences, diverting wastewater into the Mississippi River system and introducing pollution into new ecosystems going southwards. Reversal also disrupted natural waterways and affected aquatic habitats. Now, but it did solve the waterborne illness problem, and it did treat a lot of the issues that we're talking about. And today, the MWRD is one of the largest wastewater treatment agencies in the world, serving over 5 million people in this region. I learned most of this from my dad, but some of it's on their own website. And my father did a number of videos that are on YouTube or cable TV on the subject MWRD, and other related issues. So the wastewater treatment operates 7 advanced treatment plants that cleans billions of gallons of wastewater. The stormwater management, which is now consolidated stormwater management, combines sewer overflows, CSOs, reducing urban flooding through rain infrastructures and tunnel reservoirs like the Deep Tunnel Project Park, as well as the reservoirs that help the Deep Tunnel. Resource recovering resources like biosolids used as fertilizer, and biogas used for energy from wastewater, and water quality monitoring, ensuring compliance with environmental regulations and protecting local waterways. So what are the regions for Mexico or other regions, or what can we adapt on here from, or what can we do in other countries? First of all, bold engineering solutions. Include engineers and scientists in this. Include structural engineers, civil engineers, water engineers, environmental engineers, and many countries have to develop that large-scale infrastructure projects that can effectively address critical public health and environmental issues. However, they must be carefully planned to minimize long-term ecological impacts. In Mexico, for example, consider large-scale infrastructure projects to manage wastewater and prevent contamination of critical water sources such as aquifers and rivers. Integrated water management. The MWRD's integrated approach to wastewater treatment, stormwater management, and resource recovery is a model for sustainable water management. The application for Mexico or other countries developed integrated systems that combine wastewater treatment, flood control, and resource recovery to optimize water use and reduce pollution. There also should be a public health focus. The Chicago project prioritizes public health by addressing the root cause of waterborne diseases. This approach is essential for rapidly urbanized areas that do have higher rates of certain diseases that are waterborne, even if it's not as radical as cholera and typhoid being widespread as it was in Chicago in the mid and late 1800s. Focus on improving water quality in urban and rural areas to reduce health risks, particularly in communities with inadequate sanitation. One other thing I think the MWRD has done well is long-term planning and investment. MW's success is rooted in a long-term planning and sustained investment in infrastructure and technology. And I think the application for Mexico or the other country is to commit to long-term funding and planning for water management projects, including wastewater treatment plants and flood control. I would be happy to give anybody this project that I wrote, if they want to read it. I gave it to some people outside that were interested. I hope it was interesting. I do have a small business in Mexico, so I go through there frequently, and the way they're doing water management is definitely substandard and definitely favors wealthier people. It definitely favors people in major urban areas, and so rural areas are greatly affected. 40% of Mexico has no treatment of wastewater and no treatment of any type of waste, whether it's waste, waterborne, or other waste. And I think that's a tragedy and it's a public health crisis. Anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
I just was curious about the potential of sites in California at the border, Tijuana, and the southernmost part of the state of California. The situation there, since it's a cross-national problem, there is runoff coming directly from land into the ocean as well as down the Tijuana River, and it is working its way up into San Diego proper. And beaches have been closed and things like that. So I was just curious if a site like that might end up being a site to focus on early because of the cross-national.
Right, and not just, of course, San Diego, but the entire border, because on the border we have what's called maquiladoras. And basically, they pay people, probably not as much as they deserve to get paid, but they pay people a little money, but it's much cheaper than making these products in the United States, so we have a lot of manufacturing right on the border. The Chinese have heavily invested there also. So since we're a border state to Mexico, and we have a large land and water together, I believe that the U.S. would be in the U.S. best interest to somehow aid Mexico in doing this. Whether it's through diplomacy or funding, in the past we did things like the Marshall Plan in Europe, which I think was a good thing. But we have to look to our neighbor because, again, if their water's dirty, that water's going to come to us. If their water's dirty, it's going to be in the ocean. And San Diego and other places could be affected. So I think that some kind of cross-national joint venture to address these issues and have comprehensive water management between both nations would be very, very important.
Scott, wrap it up here, but go ahead in the back there.
Yes. With the new president in Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, do you feel optimistic about that she's trying to mitigate this problem somehow?
Well, she has stated she's going to be the green president. She has said that green technologies, these issues are very high on her priority. So I hope that she's able to implement them. Obviously, there's a lot of resistance because people want to save money by dumping and putting things in waterways and landfills and things like that. So companies benefit by having a higher profit and not being able to spend as much. And unfortunately, there's not a culture of recycling, and there's not a priority or realization on having comprehensive water management. But the president has made statements that have been very pro renewable resources, renewable energy, and green energy, and green construction.
Good. Question?
Do you have an opinion on waste to energy plants as a potential solution for some of the problems in Mexico?
On waste energy?
Waste to energy. Energy plants.
I think that'd be great. Yeah, I think it'd be a very good solution. I mean, this is controversial. In terms of global warming, I actually think nuclear might be an option that some people have to think about too, even though there's a downside in places like Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island. But it's a truly renewable energy that's not going to have the offsets. I mean, an electric car that's going to be fueled by electricity, it might be fueled by coal somewhere else. So I think that, yeah, sure, of course, we want that.
Okay, Frank will be around a little bit too.
Yes, of course.
Thank you very much.